Okay, so next up, while we have all of you in the room, we wanted to make a quick announcement. We wanted to announce Admit Cards Series A funding. The company recently raised 50 crores, and GSV Ventures was the lead investor in the company, and so huge congratulations to the team and welcome to the GSV portfolio. So with that, now we're going to move on to the next panel, which is Power of Women Leading Innovation and Entrepreneurship. So while reviewing information for this panel, I came across a really interesting statistic, which basically said that if India was able to increase the level of participation in the workforce of women to the same level as that of men, we'd actually add $1 trillion in GDP to the economy. So that would take India to the third spot in world GDP rankings, which is a huge jump. And so I don't understand why we're not only focusing on that. But anyway, so please join me in welcoming some incredible women that are helping move this GDP needle. On our next panel are Lisa Tenorio, SVP of Harvard Business Publishing, Prerna Jhunjhunwala of Creative Galileo, Smita Deorah of Lead, Supriya Paul of Josh Talks, Vani Kola of Kalaari Capital, and Ashley Chiampo of Emeritus. Welcome.
Come on up. Are we good? So hi, everyone. My name is Lisa Tenorio. I lead product and innovation at Harvard Business Publishing, and I have been so excited for this conversation. We have a very diverse panel, which is really interesting. I think we're going to have some diverse perspectives to share with you today and keep it interesting. We just did a little reorganizing of our panel just to keep it interesting too. But I want to dive right in, and I want to start by having our panel help us get the lay of the land. Where do women leaders stand in education, innovation, and entrepreneurship today? And what are some of the challenges? So help us set some context here. And Vani, I'd love to start with you, maybe, to give us the perspective, the venture capital and investment perspective on this.
Thank you, Lisa. Maybe I can take a little bit of a broader where are women from the startup ecosystem in India. And I don't necessarily think the numbers, they're both encouraging and discouraging depending on how you look at it. But I think it's sort of very similar to many other countries. So we were looking at this data. I want to share some data because, of course, you look at this room, there is reasonable representation of women. You look at this panel, how often do you see 6 empowered women on a panel? So that can give you a sort of wrong notion of the real data on the ground. And I've been investing in India through my firm, Kalaari Capital, which is an early stage investor. We have a little over $1 billion AUM. So we are in the game, right? About 6% of venture-funded companies have women co-founders. But when you look at that from the co-founder being a CEO, that's about 2%, right? Prerna is funded by Kalaari. She is the outlier, a woman co-founder who's also the CEO. And I was sharing this with this panel earlier, that it's kind of easy to lull yourself into, which I did, to say, well, it really doesn't matter. If you want to get there, you will get there, which was sort of the philosophy I applied to myself. But a young woman talked to me about it, and that sort of woke me up to, was I in denial to really address that perhaps there is a reason why the 2% got funded, and what was it that was in common for them, and is there a multiplier or some derivative of that we can insight, that we can learn from, versus sort of be in denial of the data. So we recently did a survey, and I just kind of want to share a couple of data points from that to kick off not so much solutions, but how women see this. We did a survey of women who wanted to be entrepreneurs and asked them what they thought was holding them back. So 70% of the women said that when they pitched, they were the only women in the room, which means they're largely pitching to male investors. So the notion that there is a woman in any capacity in that room is usually a very small probability. That may or may not affect decision, but it's something to think about. But 68% of them feel that their gender play a role while raising funding. Now, of course, we can debate, well, is that perception or is that reality? But perception is their truth, and we have to understand why is it that they feel that they have a lower hand in being able to raise capital. I'll only give you a couple more data points quickly so we can hear other voices. We also asked, what do you really need more? Do you need investors to support you? Do you need peer support? Do you need family support? Do you need governmental support, and so forth? What was interesting, at least with this cohort of women who are already aspiring to be entrepreneurs. So, that was sort of the first filter. Do you aspire to be an entrepreneur? And that might not be a representative of all women and their challenges, but this cohort of women overwhelmingly said what they need is 53% of them said what they think is holding them back is investor support. Family came only at 11%, and we talk about, are there social biases and so forth, and of course those exist probably, but for these set of women, that played a much lower role. So I'll just stop with that. I can go on and on about data, but the reason to sort of be willing to dwell into this problem deeper, Lisa, was this question that so many younger women, because whether it's Prerna, Supriya, Smita, are in a completely different generation from me, and so many young women sometimes have challenged me to say, so what are you going to do about solutioning this? And I'm not saying we have a panacea or a silver bullet answer, but what is it that I can do in my own small way to make a difference, and is that important to me? That's sort of the question I've been thinking a lot in the last couple of years, right?
And hold that thought, because we are going to talk about what are some of the solutions coming up. But I want to get the other side of the perspective here on the lay of the land, and ask some of our entrepreneurs and founders what they're seeing from their vantage point. So Prerna, love for you to share what you're seeing on your side.
Thank you. And I am a company funded by CXXO. I feel like we have a lot of conversation about gender equity and women in leadership, but very few people are ready to make a tangible impact where they are actually walking the talk. And one of them is the CXXO initiative. And as a founder, we not only get funding from something like that, but also a community, a lot of mentorship. Now let's talk about education in particular, which is my sector, right? 75% of women, of teachers are women. This becomes 50% when we talk about the principalship roles. This becomes 20% when we talk about university leaders. It becomes 6% when we talk about edtech founders, and less than 1% when we talk about policy makers. So while 75% of the workforce is women, 99% of the decision making women have no involvement in. As a founder, I strongly believe that needs to change. And to change that, we also have to understand the problems, the constant problems that a founder is facing. And one of the biggest problems as a founder I feel we face is the mindset. The mindset when we are pitching, the mindset when we're talking to people, because a lot of time these questions are thrown at you that, oh, women founders are more risk averse. Women founders are not as competitive. Women founders cannot build the best team, or women founders won't be able to do fundraising. As women, we know, I mean, whether you're a man or a woman, you are an entrepreneur first. And we know what we have to do to achieve that goal. But this mindset is constantly demotivating us. And if you are probably very ambitious, like I am, you're very often termed as intimidating. Oh, this woman is too aggressive for her own good. So we kind of have to navigate all these mindsets. And as a founder, if you can do that, and if you can navigate all of that, then you are the top 2% that Vani is talking about. But we have to have these conversations for the balance 98%.
Yeah, I'm wondering if Supriya or Smita have anything to add on kind of on the ground in education?
I think I'll take a little bit more of an optimistic view over here. So if we look at other sectors and then we look at education or edtech, like Prerna said, we have representation of women, which is nearly, it started off with 52% about 2 years ago, but has grown to about 75%. And my work involves working with, women and men, both, but in states like UP and Bihar, which are poverty-stricken. But one of the biggest aspirations for women in Bihar is to be a government teacher or to be a teacher. So I think education is the sector where we can actually push a lot of innovation for women because it's already aspirational. They are already conditioned to believe that this is where I can make progress. Unlike other sectors where we, face a lot of discrimination or there is this sort of image that a woman can't make it big. But teachers, by and large, if we start looking back at our own childhood and we start remembering, our favorite memories in school or college, we'll always remember a female teacher. And I think that's the beauty of education and edtech in general. And even in terms of representation in women founders, 30% of edtech founders are women, compared to, consumer tech, where it would be under 10%. So I think, I know the stats say otherwise overall, but pushing innovation in education for women is almost critical because they love education. They love teaching.
Women are there, so it's a great sector to push it. Yeah, I love that. And you're kind of leading me to thinking about the flip side. I know we spent a lot of time on the challenges and how do we change the barriers, but I'm just curious if, from your perspective, women bring something different to the table, actually, to this conversation about innovation, entrepreneurship, leadership. I'd love to get your perspective on that, Ashley.
Yes, hi. So at Emeritus, we are lucky we have 49% women in our employee base. And even at the senior leadership level, it's 42%, right? So, but there's still the challenge of that last mile. And I have no doubt that I see it all the time. These women are incredible innovators, right? And we have innovation across this sector, and women are engaging in it every single day, right? So that's not the issue. But the issue is that they are somehow not getting to the last mile. And I'll talk a little bit about that. But what are those wonderful traits that women bring in? And, okay, so they're the sort of traditional female traits. And what are they? It's empathy, it's emotional intelligence, and it's collaboration. And those are fantastic traits in an entrepreneurship environment, right? Because you need to be able to, first of all, particularly in education, it's a very complex product, and to be able to really dive into the learner and understand what are the learner's needs can be super helpful. And then, of course, all of us entrepreneurs, you just do whatever it takes, right? So you have to be collaborative. You have to be moving things from one person to the other and just jumping in and helping out. So Those are great traits, and they also hold us back, and I can talk a little bit about that later. Yeah.
Okay. I love the point about empathy. I mean, from a product design standpoint, which is so important, which is understanding your users. I think that's really interesting. What do others on the panel feel? Do you think women lead differently? Do you think women?
Actually, I don't think there's any difference. I think every leader is unique, irrespective of their gender. There are enough men who are empathetic. There are enough men who love education, who are great teachers. There are enough women who can be very upfront. People can call them aggressive. It doesn't matter. They can be aggressive, but that's what's needed for the job to get done. So I really don't think there is that much difference. In education, though, I think there is this one, definitely in India, there is this one thing that there are a lot more on-the-ground local women entrepreneurs, because they are a lot more in the classrooms. They are better child caregivers, and hence they've eventually decided to be teachers. And in fact, the stats would be very different when we look at local, let's say, private schools, local tuition centers, where mostly it is women who are setting up these enterprises and they're running them. And hence, if we zoom out and look at this room, I think one thing that women can bring in the edtech space is definitely higher empathy for this woman user, because her context is different. In India, still, for the largest number of women, work might be shared, but home responsibilities are not shared. And hence, the way we design solutions for them, given the context that they are working in, maybe women are a little more empathetic. We run an organization where we are disproportionate number of men in the organization, but we are serving our customers who are largely women, and we've done a good job of it. So from a leadership style, or are women leaders different? I would actually argue no, we're not different. We're the same, and I would love for this, I was talking to you about this, right? I would love for this panel to be people in innovation, or why not a panel of men in innovation, but I think we still sort of like to bring gender into the career choices that we're bringing, that we're making. I would love for us to not do that anymore.
And it's interesting, because entrepreneur, that's a gender-neutral term, actually, when you think about it. Well, you've all been successful in navigating this. You in many ways represent the exceptions to women in leadership and entrepreneurship. I'd love to ask each of you to share, what's the one thing that enabled you to be where you are today? Maybe we'll start at the end with Ashley.
I think I chose the organizations that I wanted to work with very well. And I also chose the industry very strategically. Actually, I'm a mechanical engineer, and I was really excited about manufacturing. Just love it. And, after a couple weeks in manufacturing, I just said, I'm never going to get ahead here. It's just too prohibitive as a woman. And so I made a choice. And so I'm in education. I'm in a very supportive organization that champions women. I feel very, very supported. So it was really making smart decisions about who's around you and the people and the company you keep.
Vani?
I've had time to think about this question. I don't mean on this panel, but just in life. I went to engineering school at a time when in my entire class there were less than 5% women. Engineering wasn't necessarily a cool profession for women. The numbers are slightly different now. 40% plus engineering classes in India, especially when you go to CS kind of disciplines, are women. So I'm very happy to see that. But there's always people that encourage you, and that matters a lot. And, it may sound comical to most people here, including these young girls, but there was kind of like a family gathering, which is my uncles and everybody. Should we allow her to go to engineering? Now, that may sound strange, but I won't go into the cultural context of that. And overwhelmingly, everybody was like, well, we shouldn't, because we don't know if that means she'll ever marry or not, right? So, and as it turns out, I married a senior in my college, but that's a different story. Ended up marrying after years. But anyway, my father, though, was fairly progressive. And he said, well, I think after hearing everybody, he said, well, I want her to be happy, and who knows what God has as destiny for any person. If she's really, and she did so well in her, exams and everything, why should I deny her the opportunity, right? So you need somebody to sponsor you. We talk about that in the corporate culture a lot, in the context of women getting to leadership position. Can you buddy them up? Can you create sponsors? But you do need that at home too. And I never realized until years later how fortunate I was to the many things you don't control to why you are the 2%, right? And this was drilled home to me by a young woman who said, you've always said, well, you can just go do it. Who's going to stop you? And she said, well, I was stopped every day at home. My father said, you are never going to amount to anything. You're a woman, I wish you were a son. Or whatever her equivalent paraphrasing. She said, I heard this from the day I was born. So how do you think I could have been the 2%? And it really made me reflect. As I've talked to more young women, I don't want to be so sure that what I had as advantages are so trivial. I didn't necessarily create them. I had sponsors not only at home, but even in my workplace, and I had a sponsor in my partner. Mm-hmm. And again, you don't choose who you're born to. Maybe you do choose who your partner is, and maybe you have some agency on choosing your boss. But I do think that you have to look for allies in life, and sometimes there are gifts given to you. Sometimes you can, work on it and find it. But you do need to find allies in order to get to be that 2%.
Yes. Supriya?
I think, so in Hindi, there is this word, it's called ziddi. Ziddi translates to stubborn in English. And it's used in a very negative connotation in India, that from the time that you end up going to school, if you talk back to your teachers, they'll say, don't be stubborn. If you talk back at home, if you question your career decisions, your parents will turn around and say, don't be stubborn. This is the path that we've laid out for you. Go ahead and do it. So I think the one thing that's really helped me is that I am extremely ziddi, or I'm extremely stubborn. And I tend to question everything, which annoys people a lot. But I think that's something that I've imbibed and kept true to myself even today. And then the second thing has been that I've been very selective about who my role models are. So I remember even when I was growing up, my father wanted me to be a chartered accountant. So he would make me meet his friends who've done chartered accountancy and say that, look at this career that they have. It's a desk job, they have a nice chamber, they have a secretary. This is really good for you, you're an introvert. But I would watch content of Indra Nui. And on the dinner table, I would say, but she said this. And I would question that again and again and again. So I think having the right role model and learning from them and then questioning everything has really helped me.
Excellent.
Okay, so I think for me personally, I've never played to stereotypes right from childhood. And I would actually say that, there are stereotypes of women and girls and what they're expected to do, but I also think that that's what makes me an entrepreneur. I just don't play to stereotypes, and that's been my personal journey, whether it's been, at home. I never learned how to cook. Both me and my brother shared responsibilities, and I always ensured that happened. And the way I chose my career path in my family, or I think maybe I was the first woman who ever took a job. But I didn't see it as, hey, I need to be different as a woman. I just, as an individual, never played to stereotypes because I believe that stereotypes are actually limiting. Each individual is unique and everyone needs to carve out their own path. Now, the interesting thing is that how do you do that while not coming across as rebellious or as someone who is not open to feedback and learning? And I think that's a fine balance that I've managed to strike. I have not played to stereotype and still, and I came from a family that could have well insisted on me doing it. But I've managed to negotiate, I've managed to set expectations about my life choices, and I've managed to make them very happy partners in my journey. So I think that's how I've sort of managed this, and hence I also see that is unique in most entrepreneurs. We are entrepreneurs because we're not playing to stereotypes. Most of the world is telling us that this is not doable, and we're the crazy ones and saying, no, why not? We are always, on the other end of the spectrum where we're trying to do things that the world hasn't imagined. So I now see that as a strength, and I am not apologetic about it, or I honestly have stopped worrying if people label me or they feel that, hey, that's not okay. I think that is okay. I think that's why entrepreneurs make the world a different place. And I think that's wonderful, in fact. So I would say that's been my journey through entrepreneurship or through womanhood.
I love that. Prerna?
So for me, it was two things. The first part of it was the vision that I want to create an impact in education. And that came from a very young age. I used to my father owns jute factories across India, and these are in like villages of India. So I spent a lot of time in those villages with those children. And those kids who were actually my age would say, Didi, which means sister, why don't you come and teach us? Those mothers would tell me that, why don't you teach our kids? And those kids were exactly the same age as I was. But at the same time, what they were learning was at least 4 years behind what I was taught in schools. It was not because they were less talented, but because they just did not have access to good quality education. So for me, that vision that I'm going to do something big, I will put knowledge on the fingertips of every child, was the first thing that motivates me every single day. And the second thing is my passion and perseverance, which is to say that I don't want to be just the 2%, I want to be the 0.2% of that 2%. And I will not stop until I get there, because I refuse to believe that 100 million girls who are graduating in India or who are going to join the workforce in India very soon should learn to compromise in any way. I have to leave behind a different example for my child, because we deserve that seat on the table. And I'm going to work as hard as it needs to be there.
Love that spirit. Yeah. So a few of you mentioned the importance of role models or familial support at home. So I want to spend a minute talking about how you've navigated expectations at home and at work to enable you to do what you do. And Smita, I'd love to start with you to share a little bit of.
So I think me and my husband, who also happens to be in the room, we get asked this question very often because we're interestingly partners in crime at work. We're co-founders and co-CEOs at our company Lead, and we're also co-CEOs at home. And that was an interesting journey because we started the company when our kids were very young. We have two kids. They were 3 and 1 at the time. And of course, everyone who really cared about us told us that it was a bad idea. Definitely looked at me and said it's a bad idea. At least one of you has to stay at home for the kids. And of course, they were always looking at me, interestingly. But we committed to ourselves that, hey, listen, if we really care about the mission, what we really want to do, and which is, democratize good quality education, and we care about our kids, we'll be fine. Now, interestingly, the first few years, I did find myself excessively stressed as we were working. And it took me some time to figure that I was actually playing to the stereotype. And the stereotype was that while we were co-CEOs at work, at home, by default, I was the manager or I was the CEO, and he was helping out. And he was great at doing stuff at home, but he was helping out. And I remember this life-changing discussion that both of us had, where I shared this with him, and I said, I think that's what the cause of stress is. And can we be co-CEOs at home? Which means that we split responsibilities just like we do at work. And the person who's responsible is on the driving seat. The other one can help out when they want. We made that change, 5 years back, maybe 4 or 5 years back. We split responsibility. He's been on the driving seat for the kids since then. I am not in any school groups. I don't take care of their school schedule. He does. He knows everything. I help out. I show up. When he's traveling, I am taking care. I take care of home, and he helps out when I'm traveling. So I take care of home repairs or this or that, all supplies, whatever. So I think working together, so we get asked this question very often, how is it to work with your spouse? And I actually believe that we've gotten better as a couple at home because we basically have learned to respect each other and learned to share responsibility at work. And we've replicated that at home. That's been our journey. And I think the co-CEO journey at home has also been fantastic because I think it just basically has been the right context for both our kids to grow up in.
Love that. I love how work has impacted home, actually, which is unusual. Is your husband here, by the way? Where? Can you stand up? Yeah.
And guys, please don't say, we're so proud of you. Like, that's unfair, right? Like, how all the school moms, because all the school moms were like, oh man, you're so lucky. I was like, no, both of us are lucky. Like, he's also lucky, right? So I would, because this room is full of men, please don't do that. Sorry.
No, I love it. So how does that resonate for others of you? Like, Prerna, have you managed to...
Totally different perspective here, right? Like the opposite extreme of the spectrum is actually me, Because I very strongly believe that, look, India, specifically in the Indian context, we are an extremely patriarchal society. I'm already the privileged one because my parents didn't love me any lesser because I was a girl. I was given the opportunity to go to a school. My college application was not treated differently, or I was allowed to go to a college education even though I'm a girl. That in itself is such a massive privilege, which most women or girls in India don't have. And that is the reality of the situation. We all want to aspire to be the Smita, but we are constantly dealing with our own set of challenges and navigating them continuously, right? So I believe that for women today, if we want women to be the leaders, we need to support them with a lot of infrastructure, whether it is childcare support, whether it is funding support, whether it is flexible working hours support. We need to support with them because what we are trying to change is a system that has been going on for the past hundreds of years. And that change will come only if we, all of us, are willing to make that sacrifice. And men, women together are wanting to make that change.
Love it. Love it. You're getting to some solutions now. Before we move to that, because that's where I want to go next, any other perspectives on the panel about navigating home and work, and what has worked for you?
One thing, I don't know if I should be giving this example, but it truly describes what we go through because, I had a miscarriage, okay? And I was told that I had that miscarriage because I worked too hard. Now, no woman should be listening to that, but we do. And so it is so important for us as women to stand up and own our voice and to say that it's not okay for you to say something like that to me. And unfortunately, most women don't have that voice. So if we don't bring that voice to women today, if not us, then who? And it is a question all of us should constantly ask ourselves.
Appreciate you sharing that. Yeah, that's incredibly powerful. It's hard to move on from that, actually. Ashley, I think you were going to say something about...
I'm just looking at the time, and I'm happy to share a little bit about my experience. I was working in Boston, and we as a family made a decision to move to Asia 16 years ago. And actually, it's a different experience. I found my life was much more civilized in Asia because we had support in the household. We were lucky that we had household help so that I didn't have to cook. And I also was very lucky because I found work with Emeritus and I was able to work remotely the whole time. That's the only reason why I could have a full-time job, is because we work 100% remotely, right? And so when the children came home from school, I could give them a quick hug. Okay, I might be jumping back on the Zoom, but they're in the other room and you are just there in your presence, and that makes such a big difference. But if that wasn't possible, I would have had to quit. So that's my own story. And then, of course, in the US, I'm now moving back to the US and will have to readjust because I will have to do all my household chores once again. So a little bit more trivial, but a reality for me.
Well, it's a good segue to solutions. So I want to spend the rest of our time here talking about what still needs to change. You know, how do we multiply the women that are here on this panel? What are some of the things, what are some of the solutions and things that you would recommend? And maybe, Vani, we can start with you.
Sure, I think we all can make a difference, right? We have to be willing to think about what's in my context and sphere, whether that's supporting your spouse in their aspirations and entrepreneurial journey, mentoring a younger women in the organization, or many other things. I think oftentimes we look for solutions as a big bang outcome, but I really believe solutions are usually small and grassroots. And if we say what enabled the 2% women, I think there was encouragement, there were allies, there was support, there was their own mindset. Now we can question if that mindset would have been the same if they were in a different environment, and what was that environment that allowed them to have that mindset, and how can we replicate? And so, you know, this question keeps coming up about solutions. And so I know Prerna referred to the CXXO program, but what we decided to do, you know, I run a venture capital firm, like I said, is we said, can we create a program for women founders to be given funding specifically, as well as from day one be given at least 3 mentors from different aspects of leadership that are relevant to the work that they're doing. And can we do that from day one for them, right? So we found a group of leaders who are willing to invest time into that kind of mentoring, mapping them to the founders. And we also tried to call out, not that we are trying to do a favor funding women, but we tried to encourage more applications, and we started asking ourselves the metrics. How many women are we funding, right? So it's a about 18-month-old program. We have funded 8 women. Is that a big number? It doesn't matter if, you know, every year I'm funding, let's say 5 women, and I do that for the next 10 years because that's a fund cycle. That's 50 women. And if 10 other funds do that, that's 500 women. Something positive has to come out of that, isn't it? So I think rising awareness balanced with action that is possible for you, that's in your sphere of influence. I think that's very important in whatever we do for finding solutions, small steps. What can I do? We need to ask that question and then do it.
I like that. Supriya, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I'll just share a perspective from rural India or from semi-urban India over here. Because when we talk about, I mean, the biggest problem that I see currently is lack of exposure. And when we speak about, you know, the people who are accessing the internet, we talk about smartphone penetration in India being extremely high. But what we don't realize is that it's a single smartphone that's being shared by a family, or at most 2. And usually the men have access to the smartphone. So the men in the house or the young boys are the ones who are getting access to education, and we run our own learning app. And the women are only using that phone for a select number of hours at night or early in the morning when they get that access. So I think one is the problem of accessibility and exposure needs to be changed. And second, which is a fundamental problem for women in our country, is safety. Whether it's entrepreneurship or it's just getting up and going to work, participating in the workforce, women do not feel safe to commute. And that's the biggest reason that they prefer, work from home jobs or don't end up joining the workforce. So I don't think, any amount, like mentorship will have a role to play, giving the right kind of role models will have a role to play, but fundamentally we need to question what are we doing to ensure safety and security so that we actually feel like getting up and going to work.
Ashley, you want to?
Thank you. Here we are, we're at the end of the panel, and Vani talked about small steps. So what's happening on the 8th of March? Does anybody know? Women's Day. Okay, here's the invitation. Can each and every one of us in the audience and on the panel think of one small little step that you can take to support our women and support our women entrepreneurs? Maybe it's having a conversation with your partner. Maybe it's saying, how can I help you? How can we make this an equal partnership? Or maybe it's about listening to another pitch, or getting 5 women to pitch to you that day, or actually making an investment. So many different ways. 8th of March.
I love that call to action. Who's in? Who's in on 8th of March? Woo!
It's also Holi here in India, so, make it colorful, right? So,
Other thoughts? Smita.
Yeah, I would think if we keep this very personal, then I think for all the women, I would say, and I coach this within our organization also, is that do you really feel that you're playing to your full potential? You're working towards your personal aspiration, and that aspiration can be work, it can be something to do with family, it's your personal aspiration. I think women tend to hold themselves back through guilt. My wish and hope is to get more and more women to be comfortable sharing expectations and setting expectations on what their aspirations are and moving in that direction. There are a lot of men in this room. I think for the men, my only request is honestly ask yourself that if you have a partner at home who's also aspirational about their career, are you really partnering on the home front, or are you helping out? Please don't help out. It's your home, it's your kids. Please partner. So I think that's a self-reflection for men, and I think that's a small step, hopefully, right, Vani, in the direction of empowering your partners to be their true potential.
Love that.
Time's up.
Final word to you,
So,
Prerna.
I know the time's up, but I would like to just say that this is a Power of Women Leading Innovation panel. And look at the percentage of men in this room right now. So I think the men in this room deserve a huge round of applause. So please give yourself a huge round of applause, because no change happens with just 50% of the workforce. The balance 50% have to come and make an impact as well. Voice the exact same things, because this gender equality is going to impact your daughters, your colleagues, your friends, and then the society at large. So a great representation of men on a Power for Women Leading Innovation panel.
Love it. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you all for being here.
Thanks so much. I was a little biased there and didn't want to end this panel, so thank you so much to all of you. Yeah.